When the Commanders played the Eagles in the NFC Championship game, the gap appeared to be like this. Now, they did everything they could to give that game away with all those fumbles and everything else, but I like the question that's on the screen.
Yep. I wanted to highlight that very short clip because then they go off to talk about the Commanders. Let's listen to what he said again. That's how ridiculous a comment like this. At this point, it's March, and we're still repeating absolute nonsense like this.
Look, when the Commanders played the Eagles in the NFC Championship game, the gap appeared to be like this. Now, they did everything they could to give that game away with all those fumbles and everything else, but I like the question that's on the screen.
They did everything they could to give that game away with all the fumbles. Right. Because the Commanders were just running around with their helmet on backwards, being like, I don't know how to play football, and they're just dropping the ball and fumbling. It's so unbelievable that the Eagles, first off, who were forcing turnovers on every single team that they played throughout the playoffs. The Packers, the Rams, the Commanders, the Chiefs. Oh, you know the Chiefs that never turn the ball over, apparently. It's just so unbelievable that the narrative is still somehow, this team gave the game away. They were doing everything they could. Not that it was the Eagles' defense that was so opportunistic, that was forcing those footballs, that were ready, that were not only forcing the fumbles, but then, actually recovering it, actually getting it. Like, it's so unbelievable. Not to mention the 55 points. I don't care. Having 3 fumbles does not explain you hanging 55 points. Okay? Like, I'll grant you, maybe let's just say 3 fumbles were scoop and score, which they obviously weren't, but scoop and score, 3 touchdowns, boom. 21 points. That doesn't lead to 55 points. Okay? Like, it's just insane. How are we still repeating such nonsense when the Eagles demolish the Commanders, demolish the Chiefs? Like, I don't understand. I really don't. When they're averaging 3+ turnovers a game in the playoffs, scored the most points in playoff history. I just don't understand. They held their run game to nothing. Robinson, 11 carries for 36 yards, 3.3 yards per carry. Eckler, 8 for 15, 1.9 yards per carry. Like, wow. Wow. Held Jaden Daniels to 29 for 48. Okay, 5.3 yards per attempt. So, like, I just don't understand. Jalen Hurts, who obviously was so highly efficient, 20 for 28, 246 yards, a 110 rating, 8.8 yards per attempt, 3 rushing touchdowns himself. Saquon, only 15 carries for 118 yards, 7.9 yards per attempt. Will Shipley getting some love too. AJ going for 96. Goddard going for 85. Like, I don't understand. I really, really don't. And I can't believe I'm actually even going over this game again. But when I see a comment like that, I'm just like, how absurd? Like, how absurd of a statement is that? Because, again, we want to talk about these turnovers. Oh, the turnovers. The Eagles had 66 plays for 459 yards. The Commanders had 77 total plays for 350. 100 less, but 11 more plays. The Eagles were averaging 7 yards per play. 7 yards per play. Yards per pass, 4.8 to 7.7. The Eagles are on the right. Rushing, they had 229 yards to 99 rushing. They were 7 for 7 in the red zone. 7 for 7. Again, I don't care if a turnover or an interception or a fumble, whatever, was at the 8-yard line. 7 for 7. Red zone defense is its own beast. They could have stopped them. They could have held them to a field goal. They could have forced them to go for it on 4th and 2 and not get it. And now they turn the ball over. The Commanders did not do that because the Eagles were that dominant. 7 for 7 in the red zone. The Commanders made it to the red zone twice. So it's just so absurd to kind of look at this game. They were 5 for 10 on 3rd down, 50%. I just don't understand. I honestly really, really don't. It's so crazy. I mean, the Eagles had 6 more first downs, and that led to over 100 more yards. I shouldn't say that led to it. It equated. It's just unbelievable that anyone can look at this game and say even something remotely like, well, the Commanders did everything they could to give that game away. That's so unbelievable. That really is. That really is. I'm trying to think of like a recent a game or a recent example where you could say that a team like really was doing everything they could to give the game away, because it was like clear mistakes by a team. I can't think of a good one off the top of my head, honestly. Out of all the games, oh, I got a perfect one. Just came to me. The Detroit Lions, all right, against the Houston Texans, with Jared Goff throwing like, what did he have? 5 interceptions that game, something. I mean, like it was bad interceptions. It wasn't just like, oh, that was great defense. It was just bad throw after bad throw after bad throw. That's trying to give the game away. That's giving the game away. All right? That's giving the game away. It's just really kind of unreal. If some of these fumbles were them running and it just like, they just lose it as they're falling down, or they were just kind of like basic tackles where then they, the ball pops out. Like that's not what it is. And if the Eagles weren't forcing turnovers on every team they played, like did the Rams give the game away when Jalen Carter and that D line is just getting after the Rams? Did Patrick Mahomes give the game away? They did everything they could to give the game away with the interceptions. It's just dumb, man. It's just dumb. It just doesn't make sense. That take fundamentally does not make sense. And it doesn't make sense even as a throwaway sentence. And I when I first heard him say that, it's because I was making a Commanders video about the Commanders potentially closing the gap and what they need to do, etc., etc. I'm like, that's a real conversation to be had. But when you set it up like that, first off, you're giving incorrect information to now the Washington Commanders fan base. If you're a Washington Commanders fan, you're watching that game and you're watching this clip, your takeaway should not be like, we gave that game away, or we did everything we could to give that game away. No, you didn't. You ran into a buzzsaw. You ran into an absolute dominant, literal, historic team. A team that literally made history. That absolutely demolished your team, which is okay to admit. It just is the reality. You made it to the NFC Championship game. Awesome. Truly awesome. But you got beat. You got beat. You got rocked. That's just the reality. The Rams turned the ball over a bunch because what the Eagles forced as well. The score didn't look like this. They didn't give up 55 points. All right? And the Kansas City Chiefs then got demolished by the Philadelphia Eagles in a way that no team has ever beaten the Kansas City Chiefs, not even Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They beat them in a way that Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow, etc., never did. The Eagles beat the Chiefs. The dynasty of the Chiefs, the greatness of the Chiefs, the greatness of Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. The Eagles beat the Chiefs in a way that the Chiefs never did against an actual great team. Sure, did the Chiefs do that against bad teams? Of course. All great teams always beat up bad teams like that. But the Chiefs never did that to an actual equal great team. They didn't do that to anyone else in the Super Bowl. They didn't do that to the 49ers. They didn't do that to the Eagles. They didn't do that to the Bucks. And so to just not give all the credit, to leading into this take should have been like, hey, have the Commanders close the gap. You know, what we obviously saw in that NFC Championship game, the gap looked huge, and the Eagles' defense was just getting after that Commanders' offense, and, you know, clearly the Commanders were just, you know, not on the level of the Eagles. What can they do to take it to the next level? Like, that's the lead-in. It's okay to acknowledge that. I've been super high on the Commanders. I praised the Commanders all last year, and I'm going to say that they're going to be a great team going into this year. But it's okay to state the obvious. About the Philadelphia Eagles last year, I said that they were not that good. You know, other people want to say, like, oh, you know, you just say nothing but positive about the Eagles. Well, I absolutely ripped the Eagles last season and said, you know, that record was misleading. They didn't collapse. They were never that good to begin with. That's what I kept saying. I said that they had nothing. Everyone's like, oh, the Buccaneers crushed the Eagles. No, the Eagles weren't good, and they didn't care. They weren't ready to play. And their coordinators were awful. A.J. Brown wasn't there. You know, Jalen Hurts was injured. Jason Kelsey's ready to retire. Cox ready to retire. Like, they were done. Over. And it's okay to admit that. You're like, yeah, Bucs were ready to play. Then, you know, the Eagles couldn't tackle. It wasn't like, oh, the Eagles were actually a better team and the gap was actually a lot closer, but, you know, it was just one of those games. They had an off game or whatever it was, or they tried to give the game away. Nope, they just weren't good enough. It's okay to admit that. And we know they weren't good enough because then they completely revamped their defense, hired new coordinators, went out and got Saquon Barkley, and then were dominant and won a Super Bowl. I mean, like, okay, like, the evidence is right there. The evidence is right there. It's okay to talk accurately about these teams. It's okay. That's what I constantly encourage the fans to do. I encourage even Commanders fans. Admit it. Admit that the Eagles were just a significantly better team. And I also tell Eagles fans, dude, don't try to pretend that Jaden Daniels and the Commanders are trash, because they're not. You know, you dominated a great team. You dominated a great team. The Commanders were a great team. They were not bad. Jaden Daniels is not bad. He is an awesome quarterback, and he's going to continue to be an awesome quarterback. And you beat him. You beat them. You allowed Cliff Kingsbury and that Commanders offense to not do what they wanted to do. That is kudos to you. Kudos to you. Everyone's always so quick to, I don't even know. Little things like that, man. Little things like that are so crazy. And it seems so kind of like, whatever. It was like, you know, a 10-second sentence. But comments like that, again, get you further from the truth. And if you are someone who's watching, again, let's say you're a diehard Commanders fan, and you're watching this take, you're now building your perception, your opinion, your conclusions just off of incorrect information, which then just get you further from the truth. And then simultaneously, if you're an Eagles fan watching this, you feel like you're in bizarro world. You're like, the Commanders gave away that game. They did everything they could to give away. I thought the Eagles just were awesome and unstoppable. And I thought that the Eagles then did that in the Super Bowl against the Kansas City Chiefs, against a team that you all said were going to beat them, that they had no chance of beating. Like, and so it just, I don't know. Crazy. But I saw that, and I knew I had to isolate that clip and make a video in itself. Again, I didn't think in March I would be going back and looking at the box score and looking at the thing for the NFC Championship game, but, like, you know, that's where we are with the Philadelphia Eagles, and it is pretty unique to the Philadelphia Eagles in a lot of ways. And I don't know why, because, yeah, I just couldn't see if the roles were reversed. If the Commanders won that game, for instance, and A.J. Brown fumbled, and Saquon fumbled, and Devontae fumbled, would they have just said, man, the Eagles just ran into Jaden Daniels and Dan Quinn's defense. That was special. What can the Eagles do to close that gap? You know, they would have said that. Or if the Chiefs obviously won, they would have just said, it's the Kansas City Chiefs. It's the Kansas City Chiefs. Interesting. Very interesting. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Philadelphia Eagles I guess they were actually, it wasn't actually the most dominant run for the playoffs for the Philadelphia Eagles. I guess it was just the most lucky run for them. Lucky that the Chiefs were just not good in their bad O-line, and Patrick Mahomes just had a bad game. I also heard that Andy Reid lost his fastball. The Commanders gave the game away. They did everything they could to lose that game. I guess same thing with the Packers, and I guess the Rams were just also unfortunate that it was a snowstorm. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.